Hello, I am Kelly Swingler and welcome to this masterclass, the F word, moving through fear. The F word, moving through fear. Thank you very much for joining me for this masterclass. Thank you for investing in yourself for this masterclass. I hope during the masterclass that I'm going to take you through, you will get some real light bulb moments, hopefully some moments of clarity. I'm going to be a little bit later on taking you through an exercise. It might be a good idea to have some water to hand as we go through that, just so you can have a bit of a refresh afterwards. Grab yourself pen and paper. If you haven't already done so and you want to grab a cuppa, you can hit pause now, go grab yourself a nice cuppa, sit back and relax as I talk to you about everything that we're going to cover. So what are we going to cover in this masterclass today? I'm going to share with you what causes fear, how fear can show up when we least expect it, how to recognize the differences between fear and excitement, how to embrace fear as a catapult for success, how to use your biggest fears to your advantage, some tools to help you move through fear. So this isn't about eliminating it altogether. It may well come up for us at many different stages of our life and at many different stages of our career, but how to move through it, get through that fear to the other side. And when I'm talking about moving through, it's about exactly that. It's about moving through it. It's about not letting fear stop you or hold you back from doing the things that, as a core-led woman, you know will add value to you and others. So fear will come up regardless, but how can we move through it? And then 3 ways to create a calmer and more balanced life. Before we go any further, I am recording this at home. I am home alone, with the exception of my beautiful dog. As much as possible, she's shut away. But if anyone should knock at the door or anyone should come home, she may start getting a little bit excited. So I'll apologise now. If you're able to minimize distractions at your end so that you can maintain your focus for the duration of the masterclass, that's great. But like me, you might have noises and distractions going on in the background. So you can pause and come back to it. This is your masterclass for you to learn and enjoy at your own time and at your own pace. So why are you here? Why are you here? Why did you choose this particular masterclass? Well, perhaps you're seen as successful by others, but you fear that you will be discovered as a fraud. Perhaps you find yourself worrying about everything all of the time. Perhaps you are always holding yourself back for fear of what others will think or say about you. Perhaps you fear what others will think if you put boundaries into your life. Perhaps you're exhausted from the constant fear of what next. And the way that you're feeling is impacting all areas of your life, or what I call the 4 corners of self, relationships, work, and world. So what causes fear? Well, it's my belief that fear is caused by 4 things. Fear is caused by 4 things. And these 4 things can be a situation that is an actual fearful situation. That's number 1. Number 2, overthinking a fearful situation from the past. Number 3, making up in your head, making up a fearful situation, making up fear in your head as a result of high stress, and most commonly by a complete lack of sleep. And 4thly, where ego is trying to hold you back and keep you small. That can certainly be a biggie for me. Whenever that level of fear comes up, it can be that ego is stepping in and trying to keep me safe and small. So when I talk about the first situation here, a situation that is an actual fearful situation, this is what I mean. It's an actual, real life, fear-inducing, scary situation. We might have received some bad news and we might be fearful of what this news may impact us, what the outcome of this news might be. We might be in a situation where we're worried about the future, like genuinely, severely worried about the future. It could be a situation where we're worried for our life or our safety. And in those situations, that fear response will be absolutely normal. If you've joined one of my masterclasses is Mindset, What Got You Here. If you've looked at that, then you will understand where fear responses can come from. You'll understand some of the neurosciences and what is creating that level of fear in us. But fearful life situations, real life scary situations. And I suppose some for me, scary situations, falling pregnant with my twin sons. I fell pregnant with my sons at 19. I had them a couple of months after my 20th birthday. I was scared. I was scared and fearful of the pregnancy, of what might go wrong, of the birth, of whether I would be a good mum. And some of that was, I suppose, a normal response, but some of it because of lots of other things that I had going on at my life at the time, particularly my age. Some of that was fear that I was creating for myself. I was attacked in my late teens. That created a fearful response. That created a response of fear. And in that situation, that was perfectly normal. I have a fear of heights. It's not so much a fear of heights, it's a fear of falling. If you haven't got a fear of heights, you may not understand that at all. You might just think, no, this is stupid, but there's genuine fear of falling. I can be watching a film, and if all of a sudden the angle, let's say somebody's at the top of a really, really tall building, and all of a sudden it goes down, I get that gut-wrenching feel, oh, I'm falling. Get that real feeling. I have a fear of spiders. I have a fear of going back into burnout again. Last year was diagnosed. I woke up one day, the left side of my face completely paralyzed, woken up with Bell's palsy. It became fearful. I became in fear of how long it would last, what had caused it, what could I do to prevent it. I have a fear sometimes of walking alone at night. Now, some of these things are real life situations that are presenting themselves to me in that very moment. But some of them, when I came into that second reason, some of them are fears as a result of something that happened once that then keeps popping into my head. And the thought of that or being in a particular situation again causes that fear response in me. It happened once, it might happen again. So I automatically go on to that kind of red alert situation. We can then, as I've said, the third one, we can create fear by overthinking or over worrying. As I said, if you've watched the Mindset, What Got You Here masterclass, you'll know I talk a lot in that about the fight and flight response and the neuroscience behind some of our thoughts. And if we're not sleeping properly, if our sleep for whatever reason has gone out the window, or if our stress levels increase too much, we can feel trapped in a cycle of fear. Everything can create that level of fear in us. The email we've just sent, the letter that's just come through the door, the email we didn't send, the text message we've just sent, the phone call that we've just had, the meeting that we've just had. We can start to become fearful of everything. But in actual fact, what we fear most is just the worst case scenario that we've created by our own thoughts. And fourthly, as I've said, when ego gets in the way, fear can increase. And I experience this a lot. Every time I step outside of my comfort zone, when I step into the unknown, when I'm leveling up from a business perspective or from a personal development perspective, if I've just come through a big breakthrough, or I'm getting to the point where I'm about to have another breakthrough, once that immediate adrenaline has gone, I can then have feelings of fear. What if it all goes wrong? What if people don't like what I'm doing? What if people don't like what I'm saying? What if I'm a failure? What if I succeed? What if I get no new clients? What if I get too many clients? I can go into that fear. And a lot of that is the ego. And I recognize that for me, if it's like I'm stepping out of my comfort zone and that little voice in my head is like, oh, you don't want to be doing that. It's not going to be safe if you do that. You'll fall flat on your face if you do that. That it's that little voice that can trigger that fear response in me. And you may have similar with some of the things that you do. And that little voice, when it comes up, I get through it. I've learned how to get through it, and I can recognize it. I can move through that fear. But sometimes my initial response is that I either freeze, or I procrastinate, or I panic. They're my default settings. And again, if you watch my mindset masterclass, you'll understand what I'm talking about when I'm talking about some of those default settings. So throughout this masterclass, we're going to explore ways to move through these situations. But firstly, I want to take a moment to pause and reflect on the circles of control. You may already be familiar with these, and if you are, stick with me, a refresher is always useful. But sometimes when fear comes up, when fear really starts to take over, you can draw these with me if you've got your pen and paper. They look more like eggs. I'll do 3 concentric circles, okay? Little inner one, middle, and then outer. And in this middle circle is what we can control. In the middle circle is what we can influence, and on the outer circle, cannot control or influence. Cannot control or influence. Okay, so what we can control is in this middle circle here. What we can influence, what we cannot control or influence. And a lot of the time, when we find ourselves feeling that feeling of fear, the fear is coming from this outer circle. It's things that we cannot control or influence. We're wasting our time, energy, focus, and attention being fearful of things that we cannot control, that we just cannot control. So if we turn our energy and attention into what we can control, we can start to reduce the level of fear. Now, again, if we've received bad news during 2020 with all of the stuff that was going on with the pandemic, maybe we're facing redundancy. Maybe there's something else that's causing you a level of fear at the moment. You may not be able to control or influence the situation itself. None of us had any control over the pandemic. If you are at risk of redundancy, you cannot control, you may be able to influence, but you cannot control whether your organization is making cuts or not. It's happening regardless. What you can control, which will help you to reduce some of that fear, are your feelings behind that situation. Okay, this is the situation as it is. I accept that situation. It's inducing a fear response in me. I feel fearful. What can I control? And once you start to be able to move through that fear and focusing on what you can control, the feeling of the fear will start to subside because you start to be able to create those solutions for you. So as I said, it doesn't necessarily reduce the risk or the threat, but it can reduce the fear that we have about a certain situation. As I said in the introduction, fear can show up at any time. It can show up when we least expect it. And quite often when we think things are going well and that we're ready for the next step, fear just smacks us right in the face. Hey, I'm here again. And because of how our brains are wired, new things outside of our comfort zones, things we've never experienced or felt before, if it's something new or something we've never experienced before, our brain doesn't have that pattern or that behavior stored in our head. It's not stored there. It's not in our internal files. So if you've ever been encouraged to visualize your perfect future, sometimes it can feel really wonderful, can't it? If ever you've been asked to visualize something beautiful, visualize your, I don't know, slim self, visualize your perfect day, it can feel absolutely wonderful. You've created that vision, But if it's something that you've never actually seen or felt before, your head can start to be filled with ifs and buts as you start to do the planning. Yes, but I don't know how to do this. What if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? And sometimes those feelings of doubt, the ifs and the buts, can invoke that fear. If you're the first person to try and do something, if there's no reference point whatsoever, again, your brain can't access that reference point and tell you that everything is going to be okay. Some examples. Let's say you want to be the next Oprah. Now, the only person that's going to be Oprah is Oprah, but let's say you want the fame or the fortune or the TV show or the magazine, or to be able to do the interviews that she's seeing. You've never experienced or felt that before, but the reference point, your brain says, well, Oprah did it. So even if it's something you have never experienced before, your brain, if you're thinking about Oprah, your brain knows Oprah can do that. Let's say you want to be the first female CEO of your company or the first female CEO in your sector. If you can't think or see anyone to aspire to, I'm not even replicating, but if you don't have that reference point, even if you don't have that reference point, if you're looking at it from a logical mindset, you know, your brain knows, well, women can be and women are CEOs. There is a reference point. So even if it's not within your sector or within your company, your brain knows that it's possible, or CEOs are possible. So your brain has got that reference point. But fear can show up when we step out of that comfort zone. And the more we grow and the more that we develop and the more that we step out of our comfort zone, the more fear can show up for us. And it is nature's way of trying to keep us safe. It's our brain's inbuilt hard drive saying, this is new, I don't recognize it, therefore it must be a threat. It's new, I don't recognize it, therefore it must be a threat. So what do we do to eliminate the threat? Our brain keeps us safe. Our brain will, well, you don't need to step out of your comfort zone, because this spot where you're stood right here, right now, this is safe. It's scary out there. It's a jungle out there. You might get hurt. This might happen. This might happen. The same as, again, if you've watched the mindset video, when I kind of spoke about the polar bears and the other tribesmen and the hunting and gathering. It's safe in the cave. Stay in the cave. If you go outside, you might get eaten. But we have a choice. We can continue to see the thing outside of our comfort zone as a threat, and we can stay where we are. Or we can recognize that it's a natural part of growth and we can move through it. But how then can we recognize the difference between fear and excitement? And one powerful way to shift how we view fear, depending, of course, on the situation, again, if this is a genuinely life-threatening, health-threatening, safety-threatening situation, the fear response is probably going to be exactly what it is that you need in that given moment. But if it's not, if it's speaking on stage, if it's applying for the next role, if it's going for that project, going for the promotion, starting your new business, starting something completely different, going traveling to somewhere that you never thought you'd go, we can shift our thoughts and our mindset and how we perceive the fear. So again, in the Mindset What Got You Here masterclass, I introduce you to the 3 Ps: positive actions, positive interactions, and positive thoughts. And we can choose the same here. Physiologically, in our bodies, our body does not know the difference between fear and excitement. The exact same body chemistry is present whether we are excited or whether we are in a state of fear. The exact same body chemistry is present whether we are excited or whether we are in a state of fear. And the situation may likely determine which one of those we need in the moment. Is it genuine fear or could it be genuine excitement? But we do have a choice. I wouldn't want to be excited about being chased whilst I'm out on my own at night. I also wouldn't want to choose fear just before I get on stage to deliver a keynote talk. So let me give you a couple of examples of this. The first is a story about two singers, and it was told by a music teacher. And I was, I suppose, first introduced to this story, I don't know when, 2011, 2012 maybe. But these two singers are sat in a corridor waiting for an audition. And they've both got clammy hands, they've both got butterflies in their stomach, they're both sweating, they're both going over their lines. When the first singer was called, she slowly and apprehensively walked into the room, and when she was asked to sing, she couldn't get a word or a note out. She froze. And she left that room in tears. The second singer was exactly the same in terms of physiological. But when her name was called, she bounced into the room, bounced off her chair, and when asked to sing, she gave her best performance ever. And the only difference between the two singers was that one had seen the opportunity as exciting and the other had seen it as fear. So their performances were very, very different. Physiologically, they both had the clammy hands, they both had the butterflies in their stomach, they've both got their heart pumping. But one of them had the feeling of being excited and saw it as a really exciting opportunity, and one of them saw it as fear. So they both had very, very different experiences. So it was this story and another one similar that stopped me one day from turning my car around and going home on a day that I was due to give my first talk when I started my first business. I'd only been in business for 3 months, and I was asked to deliver a keynote for a Women in Business event hosted by NatWest. And I was absolutely delighted to have been asked, particularly in such early stages of my business. I'd been really, really excited about it in the lead up to it. But the night before, I had started to doubt myself. And after a very, very disturbed night's sleep, I woke up that morning feeling terrified. And by the point that I'd done this, I delivered talks on many occasions. I had run workshops. I'd stood and talked in front of thousands of people. But this time it felt different. This time, the difference was that I didn't have a big corporate behind me. I didn't have my big employer's name behind me. I didn't have the brand. I didn't feel that I had the recognition or credibility of this big organization's name behind me anymore. I didn't have my fancy job title. I had me. From my little small startup business that was just 3 months old, and I'd started worrying about what everyone would think of me. I wasn't paying any attention to the fact that I had 15 years experience behind me, that I'd done this 100 times before, that I'd spoken in front of some enormous audiences, that I had the credibility, that I had the experience, that I had the skills. I didn't focus on any of that. I focused on I haven't got the big name behind me. This is a fearful situation. What will everyone think of me? And as I left the house that morning to deliver this talk, I was driving to this talk, I felt physically sick. And partway down the road, I pulled my car into a lay-by, literally shaking, and I told myself that I wasn't going. I told myself that I'd call them and say I had a stomach bug. I'd call them and tell them that there was a family emergency. I'd call and tell them something. It was like, I need to get myself out of this situation. I need to get on the phone. I need to tell them that I'm not coming. What can I tell them? And in that moment, two things happened. The thought of telling a lie in that moment, hi, I'm sorry, I can't come, I've got a stomach bug or a family emergency or whatever. The thought of telling that lie now that could potentially impact my brand, my reputation, and my new business felt much more serious than the fear I was feeling in the car. After all, I had been asked to deliver the talk because of me, not because of any big brand company name, not because of any corporate, not because of the status or the job title or my salary or any of that sort of stuff. I had been asked to deliver this talk because of me. And I realized in that moment that I had a choice about whether I used how I felt to stop me and move through that fear, or push me forward through excitement. So was I going to allow that fear to hold me and stop me in my tracks? Or could I push through that fear and tell myself that what I was feeling was excitement? And I started, and that story had popped into my head. The understanding that I'd learned all of those over those years, fear and excitement, same physiologically. I started my engine and I told myself repeatedly all the way there, I'm excited, I'm excited, I'm excited. And by the time I arrived at the venue, guess what? I felt excited. Nothing had changed in my body. My body was still a bit quivery and a bit shaky. My palms were still sweaty. My heart was still pumping. I still had butterflies. But I felt excited. And even the tech issues at the venue, I'd got to set everything up. Huge tech issues didn't stop me. I delivered a talk to an audience, and I had to deliver a talk to an audience, and I did it. I navigated through the tech issues. I delivered my talk and it felt incredible. I had a choice in that moment. I could have stayed with the fear. I could have phoned up and told a lie. I could have said, I can't do this. I could have turned my car around, and I could have stayed at home regretting it. I may never have been asked to do another talk that year. I had to choose to tap into excitement and get my car on the road and tell myself I was excited and get through it. And you can do the same. So if you want to embrace fear as a catapult for success, I want you to consider these questions. Is what I'm feeling fear or something else? Is what I'm feeling fear or something else? What's causing the fear to come up? What's causing the fear to come up? How can I use these feelings to my advantage? How can I use these feelings to my advantage? And finally, is there another emotion that I can choose instead? Is there another emotion that I can choose instead? And you can speak these questions, you can think them, you can write them down, you can talk them into your phone, whatever works best for you. But when you start to get that, that can be your default. Is what I'm feeling fear or something else? What's causing the fear to come up? How can I use this to my advantage? Is there another emotion that I can choose instead? Give yourself permission to choose something else. Recognize the fear. And again, remember, that's your brain trying to keep you safe. We want to say thank you. Thanks for flagging that to me. It's brilliant. Actually, I don't need you at the minute. I'm going to give myself permission to choose something else. And the more you come to recognize where the fear is coming from and what's causing it, the more you can start to use this to your advantage. And the most powerful way to do this is to turn up the volume on your fear, or in other words, reframe it by looking at the worst possible scenario for your fear, and then switch that around to look at the best case scenario. So I want to take you through an exercise. You might want to write this as I talk it through. You might want to close your eyes as I talk this through with you. You might want to just watch it, notice where we are time-wise, and come back to it a bit later as you sit and do it. But I'm going to take you through an activity. So you can write it, you can just listen and experience it, you can close your eyes and go through it, whatever feels more comfortable. You may, depending on what I'm going to take this with you, may want to have a tissue to hand in case anything emotional comes up for you. You might want a glass of water handy, just so you can take a sip afterwards. This may or may not be an easy exercise to go through, but I promise you it will be absolutely worth it. If you're not feeling in the right state of mind for now, you can come back to this later. But I promise you it's powerful, okay? So I want you to take a moment now. And I also, as we go through this, I want you to recognize that you are in a safe space. You are safe. You are absolutely safe. And you're probably thinking, what the hell is she going to do with this? But I'm going to take you through. We're going to go through a fear expansion exercise. And once we've expanded that fear, once we've turned the volume up on that fear, we're going to turn the level up on the opposite. But you may notice, depending on how much this fear is taking hold of you at the moment, mentally, emotionally, physically, you might notice that you start to feel something as a result of it. So I want to assure you that you are safe. Okay? So take a moment. Again, you can write it, you can think it, you can just go through the exercise. But I want you to take a moment and either write down or think of your biggest fear as of this moment. Your biggest fear as of this moment. You got it? You're going to do the same for your fear. So your example is the one that you're going to work through. So what you've just written down is the example that you are going to use as you go through this exercise. I'm going to talk through mine. I'll use the experience of that talk. Okay. So I just want you at the minute to sit with the fear that you've written down. If you feel safe and comfortable to do so, if you do this with your eyes closed, you might be able to see the number. I'm a very visual person, so this helps me to see them. But I want you to sit with the fear that you've just written down. So my fear is, and whatever you've written. And I want you to give it a number on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least fearful and 10 being the most fearful. So 1 is the least amount of fear and 10 is the most amount of fear. So just sit with that for a moment. I'll go quiet for a minute. You're just going to think of that fear. And on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least and 10 being the most, what's your number? If you've got it, write your number down. If nothing's coming for you, take a deep breath. What's your number? And then write your number down. And now I want you to look at the worst case scenario. So I'm going to use the example that I just gave about that day speaking. You're going to use this example for your fear, whatever your fear is, and you've got your number written down, okay? So we're going to look at the worst case scenario and we're going to just keep turning the volume up. So as I said, I'm going to use my fear of that first keynote in the early days of my business back in 2014. So the fear was that I'd be considered a bad speaker because I didn't have a brand name behind me. And so I shouldn't be doing that talk. Who was I? Who are you? So my fear was that I'd be considered a bad speaker because I didn't have that brand behind me. If I turn that fear up, what could be the worst possible thing to come from that fear? And the worst possible fear could have been that I'd never be asked to do another talk. But I need to turn up that volume. That I'd never do another talk ever again. Still not big enough. Let's turn up the volume. By not doing talks, I'd limit my chances of finding new business. It still doesn't feel big enough. Turn up the volume. By not doing talks, I'd limit my chances of finding new business and I wouldn't make enough money in my business. So you're going to keep going through these stages. What's the worst possible thing that could happen? You're going to write that down. We're going to turn up the volume. You're going to expand it. So notice how I'm turning up the volume, and every time I turn up the volume, I'm expanding that fear. So that fear started off with, I'd never be asked back to do another talk. I've turned up that volume. The fear is now, by not doing talks, I'd limit my chances of finding new business and I wouldn't make enough money in my business. Turn up the volume. By not doing talks, I'd limit my chances of finding new business and I wouldn't make enough money in my business. My business would fail. I'd have to go back to the corporate world and back into a corporate job. Turn up the volume. By not doing talks, I would limit my chances of finding new business. I wouldn't make enough money in my business. My business would fail. I'd have to go back to the corporate world, back into a corporate job. I would hate the commute. I'd hate the job, and the exec team would just be as toxic as the one I just left. Turn up the volume. By not doing talks, I'd limit my chances of finding new business. I wouldn't make enough money in my business. My business would fail. I'd have to go back to the corporate world and back into a corporate job. I'd hate the commute. I'd hate the job. The exec team would be just as toxic as the one I just left. I'd burn out again. I'd become seriously ill again. I'd end up back in hospital again. I can feel this rising in me. Turn up the volume. Turn up the volume of that fear. By not doing talks, I'd limit my chances of finding new business. I wouldn't make enough money in my business. My business would fail. I'd have to go back to the corporate world, back into a corporate job. I'd hate the commute. I'd hate the job. The exec team would be just as toxic as the one I just left. I'd burn out again. I'd become seriously ill again. I'd end up back in hospital again. I'd be no good to my family. I'd feel like a failure and I'd still have no money. Turn up the volume. See how we're working this? I'm expanding it every single time. It's getting louder. It's getting bigger. So by not doing talks, I'd limit my chances of finding new business and I wouldn't make enough money. My business would fail. I'd have to go back to the corporate world. I'd have to go back into a corporate job. I'd hate the commute. I'd hate the job. The exec team would be just as toxic as the one I just left. I'd burn out again, become seriously ill again. I'd end up back in hospital again. I'd be no good to my family. I'd feel like a failure. I'd still have no money. The pressure would be on my husband to earn more and he'd become ill and we'd be in even more financial difficulty. See how I'm expanding? Turn up the volume. By not doing talks, I'd limit my chances of finding new business and I wouldn't make enough money. My business would fail. I'd have to go back to the corporate world, back into a corporate job. I'd hate the commute. I'd hate the job. The exec team would be just as toxic as the one I just left. I'd burn out again. I'd become ill again. I'd end up back in hospital again. I'd be no good to my family. I'd feel like a failure. I'd still have no money. The pressure would be on my husband to earn more. He'd become ill. We'd be in more financial difficulty. We'd have to sell our home. We'd have to completely change our lifestyle. Turn up the volume. By not doing talks, I'd limit my chances of finding new business. I wouldn't make enough money. My business would fail. I'd have to go back into the corporate world, back into a corporate job. I'd hate the commute. I'd hate the job. The exec team would be just as toxic as the one I just left. I'd burn out again. I'd become seriously ill. I'd end up in hospital again. If I ended up in hospital again, I'd be no good to my family. I'd feel like a failure. I'd still have no money. The pressure would be on my husband to earn more. Then he'd become ill. And then we'd become in more financial difficulty. We'd have to sell our home. We'd have to cut back on our lifestyle. We'd struggle to put food on the table or provide for our sons. Turn up the volume. What's left? Turn up the volume. By not doing talks, I'd limit my chances of finding new business. I wouldn't make enough money in my business. My business would fail. I'd have to go back into the corporate world, back into a corporate job. I'd hate the commute. I'd hate the job. The exec team would be just as toxic as the one I'd just left. I'd burn out again. I'd become seriously ill. I would end up back in hospital again. I'd be no good to my family. I'd feel like a failure. I'd still have no money. The pressure would be on my husband to earn more. He'd become ill. We'd be in more financial difficulty. We'd have to sell our home. We'd have to cut back on our lifestyle. We'd struggle to put food on the table or provide for our sons. And then they would become seriously ill. Turn up the volume. What's even worse than what I've just said? By not doing talks, I'd limit my chances of finding new business. I wouldn't make enough money in my business. My business would fail. I'd have to go back to the corporate world, back into a corporate job. I'd hate the commute. I'd hate the job. The exec team would be just as toxic as the one I'd left. I'd burn out again. I'd become seriously ill. I'd end up back in hospital again. I'd be no good to my family. I'd feel like a failure. I'd still have no money. The pressure would be on my husband to earn more. He'd become ill. We'd become in more financial difficulty. We'd have to sell our home, cut back on our lifestyle. We'd struggle to put food on the table or to provide for our sons. They would become ill. Ultimately, the worst case scenario is we'd all die. The worst possible scenario in that situation would be death of us all. And somehow, if you keep expanding and keep expanding and keep expanding, the initial talk doesn't seem so bad, does it? My fear is people might not like me. Let's reframe it. What's the best possible scenario of doing the talk? Remember, I'm referring to this time that I pulled my car over. What's the best possible scenario of delivering this talk? Oh, best possible scenario. I deliver the talk and I get really great feedback. Turn up that volume. I deliver the talk, I get really great feedback and I get asked back again. Turn up the volume. I deliver the talk, I get really great feedback, I get asked back again, and I get some new clients as a result of the talk. Turn up the volume. I deliver the talk, I get really great feedback, I get asked back again, I get some new clients as a result of the talk, and then I get more talks and they also result in great feedback and they also result in new clients. Brilliant. Turn up the volume. I deliver the talk, I get really great feedback, I get asked back again, I get some new clients as a result of the talk, and I get more talks and they also result in great feedback that also result in new clients, and I'm helping more women than I could ever imagine, and my business is making a lot of money and is a huge success. Turn up the volume. Oh, I deliver the talk, I get really great feedback, I get asked back again, I get some new clients as a result of the talk, and I get more talks. And from those more talks, I also get more feedback, and that results in even more clients, and I'm helping more women than I could ever imagine. And my business is making a lot of money and is a huge success. I'm getting regular referrals and I can increase my prices to earn even more money. I can work less hours. I can spend more time with my family. Sounds brilliant. Turn up the volume. I deliver the talk, I get really great feedback, I get asked back again, I get some new clients as a result of the talk. I get more talks and they also result in great feedback. And the feedback results in even more new clients, and I'm helping more women than I could ever imagine. And my business is making a lot of money and it's a huge success. I'm getting regular referrals and I can either increase my prices to earn more money, or I can work less hours to spend time with my family, or I can do both. I'm happier, healthier, sleeping better, and living a comfortable life. Turn up the volume. I deliver the talk, I get really great feedback, I get asked back again, I get some new clients as a result of the talk, I get more talks, and they also result in great feedback that also result in new clients, and I'm helping more women than I could ever imagine. And my business is making a lot of money and it's a huge success. And I'm getting referrals, and I can either increase my prices to earn more money or work less hours to spend more time with my family, or both. And I'm happier and healthier and sleeping better and living a comfortable life. I'm able to financially support my parents more, to have more family holidays, to take more pressure off my husband so that he can cut back on his hours. Turn up the volume. Oh, I deliver the talk, I get really great feedback. I get asked back again, I get some new clients as a result of the talk. I get more talks that also result in great feedback and even more new clients. I'm helping more women than I could ever imagine, and my business is making a lot of money and is a huge success. I'm getting regular referrals, and I can either increase my prices to earn more money, work less hours to spend with my family, or both. I am happier, I am healthier, I am sleeping better, I am living a comfortable life. I'm able to support my parents more. I'm able to have more family holidays. I can take more pressure off my husband so he can cut back his hours. We're all happy, we're all healthy. And I've paid for all 4 of my sons to have a deposit for their first house. Oh, doesn't that sound wonderful? Now, depending on your outcome, you can stop there. But for me, that's like utopia. Now, my utopia might be different now. It might be different in 5 years' time. But back in 2014, that would have been my utopia. So you can stop there, or you can keep turning up the volume. Excuse me. But for now, saying this out loud has lifted my mood. I feel better. As I was talking about that fear and that worst case scenario, I could feel what that was bringing up on me. It took me back to that feeling in the car that day. Like, you cannot do this. I could feel that coming up. But reframing it, turning up the volume, expanding that fear, I feel amazing. Like, oh, I could go and do that talk. I can buy my sons a house. I can have family holidays. I can support my family. I've got a thriving business from one talk. That's got to be better than sitting in the car thinking, I cannot do this. I don't have a big brand behind me. I've got a fake stomach bug. And, you know, and even that didn't sit with me. Like, I couldn't even think of an excuse to give them, because it was like, oh, I'm going to have to lie to them. Couldn't do it. So you can expand that exercise. So think it, say it, write it, do it with a friend, do it with anybody. But keep going, keep looking for the worst possible case scenario and the best possible case scenario. Start to use that fear to your advantage and take steps to move towards the best case scenario and away from the worst case scenario. As you move away from the best case scenario and towards, as you move away from the worst case scenario and toward the best case scenario, you remove the power of the fear. You remove the power of the fear, and you move the fear into something even more powerful, that self-belief and that action. And whilst it probably sounds a little bit cheesy and a little bit cliche, when we act, ACT, action changes things. You've probably heard me mention that before. Action changes things. So the action, what's your worst possible case scenario? And 9 times out of 10, when it comes to fear, the worst case scenario is we're not here anymore. But the best case scenario could be something amazing. Once you've completed that exercise, and if you have been following that with me and you've been expanding as we go, we're just going to take a couple of deep breaths. We're going to inhale and exhale. I need my feet flat on the ground. I've got them on a footrest. I need to ground a little bit. Let's do one more. Let's do one more still. And again, if you feel safe and comfortable to do so at this point, close your eyes again. I want you to think back to the original fear that you wrote down. If you worked through this exercise with me, think back to that original fear that you wrote down. And I want you to scale it again on a number of 1 to 10. So again, I'll go quiet for a minute to let you find your number. You can keep inhaling and exhaling quite deeply as you go through it, but what's your number? Got your number? If your number is still higher than 6, so again, remember 1 was the lowest and 10 was the highest. If your number is still higher than 6, I want you to repeat that exercise. Really feel it. Repeat it. So start with your number, repeat the exercise. What's the worst case scenario? And keep turning up that volume. And then reframe it. What's the best possible case scenario? Keep turning up that volume. If you get 5 or less, give yourself an inhale and an exhale. Just give yourself a deep breath. And then take the action. What action do you need to take? Do you need to stand up on stage? Do you need to have that conversation with your boss? Do you need to have that conversation with your partner? Do you need to start your own business? What's the fear that you have? 5 or less, take the action. 6 or more, repeat the exercise. And keep repeating it until that number becomes less than 5. It's so, so powerful. And again, it's the verbalizing that can help. So if you are able to and you feel comfortable to, Perhaps do that exercise with a friend. You can both write your fear down, or with a colleague, team member. Both write your fear down, find your number, and you can say it. So you can start. So I can start by saying, my fear is that I do not feel safe enough, is probably the word. My fear is that I'm not safe enough to deliver this talk without a big brand behind me. And your partner that you're doing the exercise with can say, turn up the volume. And then you repeat it. It's important to keep building on it. It's not just adding on. What you're doing is repeating the words. You're building the story. You're building the fear. You're not just adding on like a shopping list, one thing at a time. You're repeating it as I did. You keep building on it. Okay. Hold the space for each other. Hold the space for yourself. Let out whatever needs to come. And when you've got to that safe space, take the action. Do it. Do it, do it, do it. Okay, so some additional tools to help you move through fear. So you've got the turn up the volume activity. And again, you can use that to help you move towards success and away from fear. But what else can you do to allow you to move through fear and move forward, to allow you to feel more positive and confident? And perhaps something that's not going to take as long as that turn up the volume exercise will be. So I'm going to give you now 3 quick ways to just quickly change up your energy and move you into a more positive state. So the first is what I call zip yourself up. If you've seen me talk on stage before about mindset, you've probably seen me do this activity many, many times. Might feel a bit stupid. It can work perfectly if you're about to go on stage and deliver a talk. I know some of the people that I taught this to years ago still use it before they get up on stage. They've not got to the root point. I remember I mentioned it to one woman, or I mentioned it at one talk once. She was in the audience and she still says to me, if ever I get my fear, I just zip myself up. It feels amazing. So it might feel a bit stupid. You can do it in the toilet. Seriously, go with it. And I'll quickly talk to you about the reasoning behind this. Sometimes we can feel, and sadly, ladies, I think we're terrible at doing this to one another. Sometimes we feel amazing, right? Let's say that you are dressed up and ready to go to the most amazing party of the year. You're feeling amazing and you're looking incredible, right? You've got your sass on, you're all ready. But on your way to the event, you've maybe got other people and potentially other women that just keep eyeing you up and down, and they're eyeing you up, like, you know, from your feet to your head and from your head to your feet. Like, what do you think you look like? Well, that's what it feels like to you. They might be in their head thinking, she looks amazing. But in your head, you're thinking, oh my God, these people are eyeing me up and down. Do I not look all right? And by the time you walk into this party of the year, you still look fabulous because you're dressed exactly the same as you were before you left the house. But your feeling of fabulousness might be depleting. And what's happening is every single time people are moving their eyes up and down you, they are unzipping you. All of that positive energy that you had, they're unzipping you, and you're allowing them to do it. Because every time somebody looks you up and down, you give them a piece of your confidence, you give them a piece of your energy. So what this zip up exercise does, I want you to imagine that you've got a zip, like just your favorite coat, dog walking coat, walking through the park coat, running jacket, whatever it might be. You've got a jacket on, it's got a zip, and the zip comes down to just below your belly button. And if you find yourself energy depleted, in moments of fear, feeling a bit scared, feeling a bit worried, you're going to zip yourself up. So you're going to take that zip from just below your belly button and you're going to zip yourself up. And you're going to keep zipping. You're going to keep taking the zip and you can lift it to the head. Now, you're not zipping yourself back down again. So once you've reached the top, you're going to let go and you're going to start the cycle again. You're going to go from just below your belly button, you're going to zip yourself up. Just below your belly button, and you're going to keep zipping. And you'll keep zipping until your energy shifts. And it might feel stupid and it might feel a bit woo-woo. And you might think, has Kelly lost the plot completely? I promise you it works. Keep zipping. You'll notice the difference. That's one thing that you can do if you need a bit of an energy boost, if you need to move through this fear. The second, we've already done some of this throughout today's masterclass, is breathing. Oh, how many of us, when we start to feel a bit tense or a bit stressed, our shoulders might come up to our ears. I definitely hold a lot of tension in my shoulders, but sometimes it's ear, shoulders up to ear and tension. Sometimes we forget to breathe. We're holding our breath. We might not necessarily realizing that we do it, but we might be holding onto our breath in that moment. Our body needs the oxygen, it needs the nutrients, it needs all of that lovely flow. So we need to breathe. And our breath is the most powerful resource, and we all have it. Our breath can calm us, energize us, lift our mood, change our state. So 2 quick things, or 3 quick things that you can do here. The first is just a really simple 3 deep breaths. So inhaling and exhaling, as we've done. There are 2 different ways that we can do it. As I said, I do a lot of my yoga. Ideally, we want to be inhaling and exhaling through the nose. Okay, so we can just try that. So 3 big, just inhales and exhales through the nose. So 1, yours might be a different pace to mine, just do it in your own pace. 2, 3 big, lovely inhales. So we can do it inhaling and exhaling through the nose, which is ideal, but sometimes that doesn't work for everybody. We can also sigh the breath out. So we can breathe in through our nose, and we can sigh the breath out through our mouth. We could do 2 more of those. Just feel instantly more relaxed with both of those. The other quick one, again, if you've seen any of my talks or you've done any work with me previously, the other is box breathing. I'm only going to do this for a count of 3. My boxes are actually much bigger now than a count of 3, but I've done it over time. Box breathing, and you can do it, you can use your hand with it if it helps you. I'll show you with my hand. But in essence, box breathing it's used by armed forces. It's used a lot in yoga. It's used a lot in martial arts. We sometimes use it a lot in sports. We inhale to a count. We hold the breath for a count. We exhale for a count, and then we hold our breath for a count, and we repeat it. So it's inhale, hold, exhale, hold. If this is something completely new to you, and particularly if you don't tend to belly breathe, this is brilliant if we're belly breathing. A lot of us tend to breathe from our chest or even from our shoulders. So if you're doing any box breathing, allow your belly to expand as you breathe in and allow your belly to fall as you exhale. But again, we're holding. You can do it. So you can breathe in for a count of 3, hold for a count of 3, breathe out for a count of 3, and then hold for a count of 3. Or you can start at 4. I'm in kind of double digits with it now, but it's years to get there. So don't push it. We'll start with 3. So we're going to inhale to a count of 3, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3. We're going to do that twice more. If your numbers aren't working, maybe go up to 4, but I'm going to stick with 3. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold, inhale, hold, exhale, hold. So box breathing. If you do use your hand for it, again, that can help to calm you down. You might not need it. You might just count in your head. So inhale for your count, hold for the same count. It's equal breath. Box breathing, equal breath. Okay. So there's a couple of techniques there. The third is one called Ujjayi breath. This can be great for balance and control. And it's great for balance and control because it holds you steady. So again, if it's something that you practice, I don't know if you'll be able to kind of hear the sound, but I want you to kind of imagine, if you think a bit, you dry your breath, if you think of Darth Vader. If you've watched Star Wars, if you haven't, look for a quick clip, but hopefully you'll know what we're talking about. If you think of Darth Vader, you hear Darth Vader breathing, right? You hear that. Don't know if that's picking up, but your dry breath is really that sound. It's great for helping with metabolism and weight and lots of other different things, but it really is your breathing. It's through the throat. So if you think about it, I don't know, it's like maybe a pre-snore, an awake pre-snore. So you breathe in. Breathe out. Hear that? It's in the throat. I suppose a bit like a gargle. But ideally you want to be doing that with your mouth closed and inhaling and exhaling through your nose. Okay, I don't know if you can pick that sound up very well. Otherwise, it probably just looked like the screen had frozen or I was doing something stupid. So, but you can practice that with mouth open. So think Darth Vader breath. Great for focus. You can't do Ujjayi breath quickly. It really is a slow and steady inhale and exhale. So the Darth Vader breath is automatically a slow breath. That will automatically change your physiological response. So you've got a few things there. You've got inhale and exhale through the nose. Inhale through the nose, exhale and sigh the breath away through the mouth. You've got your box breathing or equal breath. And then you've got your Ujjayi breath, your Darth Vader. So there's a few different ones there. And thirdly, you can tap it out. You can tap out the fear. I don't know if any of you have ever done this before, EFT, which is basically tapping. So we have touch points. And let's say it's about fear. You'll say what your fear is, but you'll finish it always with, I truly and completely love and accept myself. Okay, again, this might feel a little bit weird. If you've tried it before, you'll know exactly what it is. Quickly take my glasses off just so I can give you a bit of a demo. I can't do it with my glasses on. You probably think, well, I can't just tap a hand, but I'll show you. So let's say, so we start, so the touch points are on the kind of karate chop of our hand. So we want between kind of 5 and 7 taps on each point. Okay, so we start with the side of the hand. And the 5 or 7 may be, even though I am scared, and just follow me, I'm going to move my hands, you're going to move it to the touch points with me. Even though I am scared of speaking on stage, I truly and completely love and accept myself. Even though I am scared of going for my promotion, I truly and completely love and accept myself. Even though I'm scared of starting my own business, we're going onto the arms now, I truly and completely love and accept myself. Even though I'm scared of what people might think of me, I truly and completely love and accept myself. Even though I'm worried that my next step might fail, I love and accept myself. Even though I'm worried that I'll never be a success, I love and accept myself. Even though, replace it with your fear. I've given you a few examples there. Yours might be something completely different. We'll just keep going. We'll do one more round. You're going to fill it with yours. Even though I love and accept myself. 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 And you can finish with a bit of a tap of the wrists. Give yourself a nice big deep breath. You might want to shake it out a little bit. Shake it out. We've shifted something in our energy. And with everything that we've done in this workshop, you might be feeling a bit thirsty. I know I am. Keep shaking, keep shaking, keep shaking. I'll stick my glasses on. Keep shaking. Let it all go. Let it all go. Breathe it out. Oh. Okay. So you've got zipping yourself up. Take a glass of water if you've got one. You'll turn up the volume exercise. If it's a fear that has been sat with you for a while, you can do it on your own. You can do it with a colleague, friend, partner, anybody. Allow whatever needs to come. Quick wins, quick energy shifting. You've got your zip up exercise. You've got, what have I gone through with you? 4 different breaths. Inhaling, exhaling through the nose. You've then got inhaling through the nose and sighing the breath away through the mouth. You've got your box breathing or equal breath, your square. And you've got your Darth Vader breath, Ujjayi. So you've got 4 different breaths. And you've got your tapping. If you want to try it all, try it all. I don't think we can ever do too much of this kind of stuff. And you might find also that you have a favorite. So it might be actually the zip is my favorite. It might be the breath is my favorite. It might be the tapping is my, but know that you've got these additional resources to be able to help you move through this fear. And finally, 3 ways to create a calmer and more balanced life. The first is get really clear on who you are. The fear can come up for us when we are out of alignment. The fear can come up for us when we are out of alignment. We can become out of alignment when we're overthinking. So remember I said if we start overthinking about a possible scenario, that can happen when we are out of alignment with our 4 corners. If we are making up fearful situations in our head as a result of high stress, we are out of alignment. If ego is trying to keep us small and hold us back, something is out of alignment. Or it might be because we are up leveling. And stepping out of that comfort zone can cause our brain to think we're in some sort of danger. It wants to hold us back. So we can start with who am I? Who am I? Who are you? Who am I is the question. When we are clear on who we are at the core, the fear will still come. The fear may very well still come. But we can move through it much more quickly. Because we know that by staying in our comfort zone, by playing it small, by staying safe, by letting the fear stop us, we know that we will not be leading from our core. So you can sit with the question, who are you? And sit with it for as long as you need to. Literally sit with it for as long as you need to. Who am I? Is your question. And keep going with it. And I don't mean the superficial stuff. Hi, my name's Kelly. I'm 41. I live with my 4 sons and my dog and my partner. It's not that. It may start with that, and then you start to, it's a bit like peeling back an onion. You might start with that superficial, and then you get deeper with every answer and deeper with every answer. Sit with that question for as long as it takes. When you don't think you've got anything more to answer, Stick with it. And there's no supplementary questions. There's no conversation. Again, you could do this with somebody else. There's no supplementary questions. The only question is, who are you? And you keep asking and asking and asking. Who are you? What comes up for you? That was when I had my light bulb moment of, I'm going to start my own business. Never thought in a million years to have my own business. I was going to be 40 and some global HR director for some massive global organization. And it was during the Who Are You exercise. It was like, I want my own business. Like, where did that come from? Never in 33 years had I thought that that's where I would get to. That's where I got to. So there can be some real power with that. When you're clear on who you are at the core, you know who you are, it then becomes easier for you to set boundaries. And some of those boundaries may also be around some of that fear response. So the boundaries become easier for you to create. So get clear on who you are, get your boundaries in place. And when you've got both of those two things, take more time out for yourself. Particularly if you are finding yourself in situations of fear and anxiety when there is not that perceived threat. Are you not making it up, but are you overthinking things? Are you creating the fear for yourself? If that's happening, it's likely that you're experiencing high anxiety or high stress. And any of those two things mean that something is out of alignment. Those four corners, one of those four corners is out of alignment. If you want more details on the four corners, if you want more about mindset and why we think and feel the way we do, go and check out 2 of my other masterclasses. You'll find them in the shop on the website. Or join the VIP community. You'll get all of the masterclasses will be in the VIP community. So if you want more on that, you want to take it deeper, you've got access to those there. So who are you? Boundaries, take time for yourself. Oh, there we go. So we have covered what causes fear, how fear can show up for you when you least expect it, how to recognize the differences between fear and excitement, how to embrace fear as a catapult for success, how to use your biggest fears to your advantage, tools to help you move through fear, and 3 ways to create a calmer and more balanced life. Before you go any further, I'd like you to do 2 things. Firstly, I would like you to make an I commit to statement. And I ask all clients, everybody I work with, to make an I commit to statement at the end of every session, every masterclass, workshop, whatever it is. I do this for 2 reasons. Firstly, if you're not prepared to take any action as a result of today's masterclass, you may have invested your time, but nothing's going to change. It's highly likely anything will change for you unless you take action as a result. You might think, oh yeah, I've got that now, but you've got to commit to taking the action. Secondly, if we do not implement action, if we don't take action and start to implement learning within 7 days of having completed the learning experience, we lose 50% of what we've learned, and then those percentages decrease after that. So I want you to just take a moment now. What's your I commit to statement? I commit to your words as a result of today's masterclass by midday tomorrow, or whatever your time is. I'm not saying it has to be midday tomorrow, but I want you to commit to. So I commit to whatever your commitment is as a result of today's masterclass by, and pick a time and day that you're going to do something. That's your I commit to statement. I would also love for you, before you click finish on this video, or when you've clicked finish on this video, I should say rather, when you've clicked finish on this video, I want you to just give yourself 5 or 10 minutes of just you time. Don't rush to the next meeting. Don't rush to the next call. Don't rush to do stuff for anybody else. Give yourself time, even a couple of minutes, but just stop. Take a breath, scribble some more notes down, allow everything that I've covered today to just kind of sink in. Give yourself that time and space to allow for that to happen. Please. You will thank yourself for it later. And that's it. I want to thank you very much for joining me for this masterclass, the F word, moving through fear. If you are already in the VIP community, you've got access to all of these. But if you are not, and you'd like to learn more about how you can be a successful woman without jeopardizing your well-being or your career, check out my other masterclasses in the shop on my website, or you can look at how to join the VIP community, or even the Core-Led Women's Program for Success. You'll find both of those on the Work With Me section. So head back over to the shop, or have a look at the Work With Me section on the website. And that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have had some light bulb moments. I hope as you do some of the reflective work, you get a few more, and keep going. Remember, this is your masterclass. You've got it. Now you've got it. It's yours. So come back to it as often as you like. Revisit it as often as you like. Come back to your notes. You might find that, you know, if you were to watch it a month from now, you might even get some different learning from it, particularly if you start to take action now to begin to move yourself forward. You might find that you get some different light bulb moments, some different learnings. The fear that you maybe wrote down today in the volume, turn the volume up exercise might have gone. It might, that's not to say there might not be another one. Can't get my words out now. I've been speaking all day today. So come back to it. And if you get to the point where you think there's like another fear is holding me back, dig deep with it. Dig deep with it. Remember those 4 questions as well that we spoke about. What's causing the fear? Where's it coming from? Can I choose a different emotion? Go through those. You know, you've got the questions. You're understanding more of where the fear is coming from. So this is your masterclass. You use it as often as you need to. Keep coming back to your notes. And that's it. I'm going to leave you there for today. Again, thank you so much for joining me. Well done on investing in you. You will absolutely thank yourself for it later. So take care. I'll hopefully see you next time. But for now, enjoy the rest of your day. And I'll hopefully see you again soon. Take care for now. Bye-bye.